Since 2003, there have been widespread atrocities, deliberate systematic targeting of civilians in Darfur. My organization looks around the world for situations where civilians are being deliberately and systematically targeted, and Darfur is very high on the list of places of interest due to the widespread atrocities that are taking place and have taken place since 2003.
For being here today. My name is Joseph Sebarenzi and I'm from Rwanda. 15 years ago, at this time, a genocide was taking place in Rwanda. Loved one cried for help and no help came. Only death came. My loved one had hoped that the international community would help, but it did not. As the genocide unfolded, the international community talked, and never acted. As the genocide in Rwanda went on, fellow human beings around the world went on with their daily lives. After the grotesque failure to help the people of Rwanda, I thought such failure will never repeat, but it has repeated in Sudan. Now, it is not time to talk, it is not time to stand by, it is time to act. My prayer is that world leaders would take a moment and think what they would do if the children of Sudan were their own children. I wish leaders of this world would take a moment and think what they would do if the women in the refugee camps in Darfur were their own daughters and sisters.
But again, this was Rwanda. It wasn't clear what the strategic interest was. But the bottom line was that everybody expected the United States to act, even though the United States couldn't just walk in and do stuff. With this, it's part of the problem of being a superpower. People expect you to do everything, even if it's not your sphere of influence, even if you yourself don't have the capacity to do it. People expect you, and that's the problem of declaring yourself the global leader. People expect you to do all kinds of things in the system, and sometimes you just don't have the capacity to do it. So that's what happened in Rwanda. I thought that the United States would act, but they didn't. I'm not surprised that they didn't act. I'm a little shocked that the response to the Darfur crisis suggests that we didn't learn much from their response to the Rwanda crisis in terms of the way the administration, the U.S. administration is responding to the crisis, but also the way the advocacy groups who are trying to get the United States to step up are articulating the problem. Going out there as if campaigns alone would get administration to act. Those are important, but it's going to take much more. And one of the legacies of Rwanda is that, particularly for Africans, Rwanda has desensitized social observers in Africa to an extent that unless you have a crisis that hits a certain magnitude comparable to Rwanda, nobody really thinks it's a big deal because there are so many different conflicts going on. Darfur, yes, Darfur is there. It's fortunately it's made it to the American public discourse, but it's not clear exactly what administration can do. And I wish that people would debate that as much as we debate why the administration is not acting.
To stand and unite together and demand a serious action from the United States to lead the international community as a leading power in the world to end the genocide in Darfur today before tomorrow.
The United States has a moral obligation anytime you see humanitarian catastrophes. We are the most powerful nation on earth. We have the most stake in creating a order in the world that is stable and in which people have hope and opportunity. And when you see a genocide, whether it's in Rwanda or Bosnia or in Darfur, that's a stain on all of us. That's a stain on our souls.
This administration has many principles, including President Obama, Vice President Biden, Secretary of State Clinton, UN Ambassador Susan Rice, and many officials in the National Security Council who were very outspoken about robust actions the United States should be taking to address the suffering in Darfur and change the behavior of the government of Sudan. And so I think it's safe to say that the expectations are much higher for the Obama administration than they were for the Bush administration, which, while it gave lip service to the situation in Sudan, definitely made it clear that its priorities were elsewhere in terms of resources, in terms of taking on risk, in terms of devoting diplomatic energy. But this was, during the Bush administration, and continues to be a point of interest for U.S. foreign policy officials. The question is, will there be time and space and a decision made to actually take this on in order to end it? So there's a big distinction we make between managing the symptoms of the crisis and putting together a policy that is proactive in ending the crisis. Those are two different things, and obviously a president can't take on everything in a substantive way, and on most issues has to play defense and be reactive. But we're hoping that the raised expectations from the Obama administration will result in them making a decision to end the crisis, not manage its symptoms.
It's now been more than 3 years since Colin Powell announced that the killings in Darfur were genocide. Yet the killings continue to unfold in plain sight of the world. Unfortunately, the Bush administration's words have not been matched by deeds. Its actions have been ad hoc and inconsistent. The administration's envoy for Darfur doesn't even work full-time. What we need now is strong American leadership so that the government of Sudan understands that it can no longer carry out these atrocities with impunity. We need to raise this issue directly with China, which has a lot of leverage on Khartoum and has been the main obstacle to strong Security Council action. And I appreciate greatly the Chinese government's continuing confidence in United States treasuries. I think that's a well-grounded confidence. We have every reason to believe that the United States and China will recover, and that together we will help to lead the global recovery.
Clinton and Chinese officials agreed Saturday to focus their government's efforts on stabilizing the global economy and combating climate change, putting aside long-standing concerns about human rights.